The Buscema brothers, John and Sal. Um, a friend of mine on Facebook said that he goes, he basically said, I don't want to be controversial, but I really believe that John Buscema, more so than Jack Kirby, was the face of Marvel Comics. And I said, well, maybe in the '70s, and yeah, in the '70s, yeah, and I guess he's right. Buscema did a lot of work back in
Mhm.
the day. You know.
Yeah, he was very fast at doing layout pages and
Hmm.
handing them off to other artists. He was big with a lot of he could seemingly draw any hero they had really well.
Drew them all basically. I
Right? And
mean, he drew the Avengers. That was like everybody.
yeah, he did the Avengers. He did some. Did he do any Fantastic? I think he did some
He did
Fantastic.
Fantastic Four. Yeah, he drew Fantastic Four.
Silver Surfer, which he was
Silver
originally
Surfer was a
known for.
biggie. Spider-Man, always guesting and stuff. And of course, the guy who did the most was Conan.
Right. Conan and something else, wasn't there? Oh,
Yeah,
probably Silver Surfer, I'm thinking of.
everything. I mean, I can't think of a. I don't remember him drawing an X-Men book, but I seem to remember. And of course, he drew the X-Men in certain, you know, in guest appearances, Wolverine and all that. He may have drawn an X-Men book. I don't know, but I just remember a lot of Conan, a lot of Avengers.
He
About
did Nova, Ms. Marvel, Captain America, Captain Britain, Daredevil,
She-Hulk.
Frankenstein, Howard the Duck, Master of Kung Fu, Red Sonja, Warlock, Worlds
Mm,
Unknown. He did Kazar or Kazar, or however you say it.
yeah,
Some Doc Savage, Tarzan, Star Trek, and of course Conan. He was like everywhere.
and most usually penciling. Occasionally, he would ink his work, but he really was a penciler because just to get the book out
Right.
quicker
Yeah.
or whatever. Like I read he was doing 2 or 3 books a month if he was just penciling them.
Or this says Wikipedia says 3 or 4 books a
Oh,
month.
3 or 4. Okay,
Right.
well, so he was doing a book a week. That's pretty amazing.
Probably. Yeah, he was
We're
really
talking about
prolific.
John now because I know
Yeah, John
Sal
used,
was
yeah.
because I know Sal was a workhorse too. But we're talking about John.
I
Okay.
think Sal was more inking, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he did a lot of penciling too.
Did he? And
Yeah.
then he started a school in Port Jefferson, which I remember reading the ads for it, and I was actually looking to try and figure out how to attend, and then it stopped, and then afterwards he turned the his lessons into the book How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way.
Yeah, which everybody bought.
Which up until then, I mean, usually if you wanted a how to draw book, it was more fine art related
Sure.
rather than like comic book related. So when this book came out, and again, this is before the internet, where you had stuff at the tips of your finger, or from your keyboard to the screen. This was like a gold mine, or hidden treasure. Like, oh my God, I never thought of doing that. Oh, that's why like Marvel pages look better than some other comic pages and inking. Oh, it just never. All that information was not really easily available. So
Right,
that book
right.
came out. Yeah, and that must have sold millions of copies, and it's
It's
still in
probably
print.
still in print. Yeah, it's probably
Yeah,
still in print. It's probably been updated too, maybe. I don't know.
I'm
But I
not
mean,
sure.
you're talking what? When did that book come out in the '70s? Probably, right?
Yeah, sometime in the 70s, 78, 79. Let me see.
Yeah, yeah.
That's here. 78 or 79 or something like that. But
Look. I mean, my opinion. Like I said, my opinion. It was a basic book. It didn't really. It taught. It gave you an idea, but it wasn't in depth because it's like, especially with the inking part, it was like, oh, here's a brush and here's
right,
this and here's that. But when the part about the layouts, yeah, that did because I remember part of the book where it was like, here's a scene from like whatever. And here's the Marvel way. So the scene would be just the characters like standing straight, like,
Right.
and the Marvel way would be like there'd be arms sticking out, and that's
Yeah.
all Kirby. That's all Kirby
People
stuff.
action poses and stuff.
Yeah, more dynamic. Yeah,
I think
definitely.
for a lot of people, John Buscema was more accessible than Kirby
Yeah. Well,
because Kirby,
Kirby went to DC, so
yeah, but Kirby was really out there with his way of drawing figures and especially fists. His fists always looked funny to me with the thumb at the side instead of across the fingers. And sometimes the faces he drew were kind of ugly because I think at DC a lot of his faces were redrawn by somebody else.
well, that was the editor at DC
Yeah,
who hired Kirby. What's his name? Mike Fantino. He hired Kirby, but he never really liked Kirby.
right.
So when DC was infamous, then Marvel too. I shouldn't take Marvel, but DC was infamous. I remember in some of those fourth world books, especially Jimmy Olsen, they
Yeah,
would have. I didn't notice this at first. It wasn't until I saw an original art page. They would get like Kirby would draw it, right? And all of a sudden
right.
it's like, okay, here's a Superman face. All of a sudden you'd see like a paste up. Oh, it's an Al Plastino Superman face.
Yeah,
And then you see Jimmy Olsen. Oh, it's a Murphy Anderson Superman face. It
yeah,
was so. I didn't notice it until I saw the original. It was really disturbing to me. But Marvel would do the same thing. They would get John Romita to redraw faces on characters, and you're looking at a Gray Morrow story, and all of a sudden there's a John Romita face, and it's like, what? I have like I have such anger towards it because it's like, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to actually make the character look more like Captain America? Or are you just trying to like make us look, make us like go, what the hell is this by putting a John Romita face in a Gray Morrow story? I don't think it worked, but I think it was Stan
I
Lee
know
or
because it's such you notice it right away the change.
oh my God, yeah, I love Romita, but you notice it. It
Yeah,
like sticks out more than a sore thumb because it's like, wait a
exactly.
minute, what happened to the face of Dracula? Now it's John Romita's Dracula as opposed
Yeah,
to Gene Colan or John Buscema or oh God,
I think well sometimes editors feel they need to edit even when it's editing is not needed. So they're trying to justify their position or something, I guess. So I think, and plus, not everybody likes Kirby or some other
but
artist.
it wasn't just Kirby. They did it to
Yeah,
all sorts of artists. I mean,
so
Kirby was an obvious one.
they probably didn't. Well, I don't like the way that face is drawn here. I like the way this guy draws. You just draw the faces and
Yeah, they'd go to the production team and go, "Hey, do me a favor, redraw this face and paste it over it like a sore thumb, you know."
yeah,
So,
exactly. Yeah, it stands out because nothing. It doesn't work with the rest of the
and
line.
and I always say, as if a kid who's buying the book gave two poops
Right.
about it, they
Well,
didn't care.
if you, a lot of people who are artistic noticed it. That's why,
You're
like
right.
we would notice it. Like that looks weird,
No,
you
you're
know.
right. No, you're 100% right. Like, some people didn't notice it, but I would say 50% or more noticed it, and they went, "Whoa, what's this?"
Right.
And you're like, "Okay, it's John Romita making an appearance in
Yeah.
some other monster book or whatever." But anyway, yeah, Kirby was also when he went to DC also got an inker who's infamous. I don't hate Vince Colletta, but he's infamous for cutting corners and erasing backgrounds and blackening things and doing some kind of sketchy things. But I don't hate Vince Colletta. He was doing a job, but he definitely like didn't. Well, he did an okay job on Kirby. I'm not going to bag on him. He did whatever. I mean, I'm not here to criticize, but I do criticize the editors for putting in. Hell, even in DC, even back in the '60s, I remember seeing a a cover. It was a Neil Adams cover on a Superman book, and they freaking put an Al Plastino Superman face on Superman. They took off the Neil Adams one. I'm going like, why? I mean, some of these editors must have been like tyrants. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about John Buscema. I don't remember John Buscema ever getting a paste up done on him ever.
No, I don't think so. Well, first off, he was a real imposing guy,
Yeah,
so I think he intimidated a lot of people
I think so too.
because he trained. He was originally going to look to be a boxer, I think, or he trained in boxing and stuff. But he
Yeah,
also lifted weights. So I think he was a real big, imposing guy. And I think because of the popularity he had, I think people just, like, you know what? And he was good. He was fast, and that's what you needed in comics because you had to get the books out. So I think they may have, say, hey, let's not ruffle his feathers because, you
yeah.
know, he's a top guy.
Well, he was their top guy for a while there in the '70s until
Yeah.
like John Byrne got big or whatever the other other artists were later on the X-Men. But I think from like when Kirby left in '70 or whatever '71 to like '75 or something, he was their top guy. But he became the Conan guy. I mean, he basically was. I mean, not basically. He did do a few things here and there, but it became known for Conan
Oh,
the Barbarian for 100 issues or more.
and it was a popular comic.
Yeah.
He
Even
he
though I got to tell you, there's a lot of people that it was a popular comic. A lot of people I know did not care for Conan. I mean, I was talking to some friends, and I didn't buy those. I
oh,
want to see superheroes. I didn't want to do sword and sorcery.
wow.
So I don't. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that there are some people that didn't want. Not they didn't even buy the Barry Smith ones because he was the
Wow,
first
really?
Conan on Barry
Oh,
Smith.
that's just that. Well, it's funny though. At the time, except for Spider-Man, I wasn't really interested in superheroes either. Like I would buy the Conan books and the Weird Worlds that had Edgar Rice Burroughs stories in them. Or I remember once getting an issue of Lana Beast, which I never heard of.
Yeah,
I've never
Banana
I've
Beast.
never
Yeah.
seen the character again, but it was pretty cool. He's riding on he's standing on
Banana.
the like one foot's on the back of a rhino, the other one's on the back of a
Yeah, I remember that. That's
you
funny.
know, and I kind of I like that stuff. But that most of the comics I bought were Golden Key and Dell. I like monsters, Twilight Zone ones, um, UFOs. I mean I am familiar with Kirby through his various giant monsters like Fing Fang Foom.
Oh, the stuff he did in the '50s. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
you bought the Buscema books, right? Did you buy the Buscema
I bought
Fantastic Four or Avengers or anything
no,
like that?
never. I mean, also the where I lived and the stores around me, they wouldn't necessarily carry the continuing book. So like you may get a Superman. Oh, you may get the next book, or then the next book after that would be sold because they would only get like one copy.
Yeah, yeah, sure, yeah.
So you couldn't. So sometimes if like I always like stories of Superman with Bizarro in them. So if there was a Bizarro cover, I would buy
Hmm.
that. Or Batman doing weird things. Even though I loved Batman, I loved the TV show. I had a lot of Batman toys. I never really read the comics unless it was something. I can remember one. It was I don't know, a bunch of like an anthology, a bunch of different stories. One Batman gets turned into a vapor. He
Oh yeah, I
becomes
remember those, yeah.
dimensional. A bunch of other weird
Yeah,
stories.
they were
Like
usually like specials, like 25-cent
yeah,
specials.
yeah, I'd buy those, but never until I fell in love with Spider-Man, which was probably in the early '70s. I never followed a particular superhero except Joe Kubert's Tarzan. I love that. I love that. I would buy that regularly.
Did you buy Sergeant Rock stories?
Uh, I,
Huh.
I was not a big
Oh,
fan
you're,
of.
you're Edgar Rice Burroughs, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of war stories. I never watched Combat or
Hogan's
Rat Patrol.
Heroes.
Cloak and Heroes I watched, but that was more comedy.
Yeah, I know. I'm just joking
You know.
around.
But yeah, so it wasn't until Spider-Man that I really got involved in a superhero, and then Conan came out, and I mean, I love sword and sorcery, so I started buying that.
Did you know about Sword and Sorcery before Conan comic
Oh
book?
yeah, 'cause my brother read it. My brother had the Conan Lancer books
Oh, okay.
and other science fiction books. And, that's when paperbacks were big and all those stories were coming out.
Yeah.
And Frazetta was doing covers for Conan, and then you had Roy Frankel doing and Frazetta doing covers for the Tarzan books and stuff. And it wasn't, yeah, and even my brother would read Conan, and he started with the Barry Windsor Smith books, and I would look at him and like, but then when Buscema took over, I was like, yeah, I like this, yeah, it just seemed more raw and
Okay.
energetic, because of big muscles and stuff like
Angry
that.
face.
That's when I started really copying. I can remember making my own drawing book of what like arms and legs look like, and I would copy them from Buscema's drawings, and just trying to learn. This was before the Marvel Drawing the Marvel Way book came out, and I was just trying to learn how to be a little bit more realistic in my drawing and how to understand muscles and whatnot.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, Buscema definitely like when he showed up in the late '60s, he definitely made an impact on Silver Surfer and Avengers and on Fantastic Four. But the book that made him a big deal was Conan. Definitely, it was Conan
And
because that was like that became one of their most popular books at Marvel, and they didn't pay. I don't think they paid much. I think they got the rights to the comic book for cheap, from what I understand. I remember there was. It always said it was Roy Thomas had the idea of doing it, and it always said courtesy of the Glenn Lord something. He was the guy who was
executor,
the estates holder or something
executive,
like
yeah,
that.
whatever.
So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
well,
I read the Conan paperbacks. Honestly, I read them as a kid, and
yeah.
I don't remember much about them. I remember the covers were by Frazetta were amazing, but
Mhm.
when I read the comic books, I thought the comic books were kind of cool, actually. So I was
Yeah,
always a comic book.
they had
And
some
then they
better.
had Savage Sword of Conan, which were more violent and sexier or whatever. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
good too.
I bought that too, and they had a lot of good artists in there, and yeah, again, sometimes like he did the one story where some of the panels that showed, I had the regular comic book version and the Savage Sword version, and
Yeah.
you could see some of the panels had been uh, taken out of the regular comic book version, which showed some nudity or more cleavage than necessary, or some more violence and whatnot.
Yeah, I remember when Marvel did that book, Savage Tales, that had Conan. It was more
Right.
explicit, but then I remember there was a story in it, and it was that I don't think this group ever made it past this. Maybe they did, I don't know, but it was called the Femazons, and I remember it was like drawn by John Romita, but you could see like he would draw like sheer clothing on him, and you could see like them nude underneath, and you're like, oh man, Marvel's like. And this crap would be sold on the newsstand, and they would sell it to you because
Yeah.
nobody's looking inside. They're like, okay, and they're getting, oh wow, look at this, little kids TNA here for a quarter or whatever. That's same with Vampirella,
Yeah.
same with the more the war and stuff started getting sexier. So it was funny. I mean, I always thought they really never got police for this stuff because I mean they couldn't do it in the comic books. But boy, did they ever go out of their way to do it in the earlier ones? By the time Conan became like a big deal, I don't think there was a little bit, but not much. Thing about Buscema is with certain exceptions, he was always inked by somebody. It was
Right.
always I never liked so I like some of the Filipino inkers, but I never liked all of them. And it was Ernie Chan or Tony De Zuniga or Alfred Alcala, and they're great. They're fine, but
Correct.
I always liked the pure Buscema, and it was
Yeah,
not often that you would get that,
he
because
was
he was more valuable to them as a penciler than a penciler
right.
inker.
And from what I understand, depending on who was going to ink him, depended on how detailed he would get in his
Oh, okay.
pencils, because some guys could finish and get an idea of what he's doing and finish his work
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
without messing it. And other guys, they just did not know how to ink, so he had to be a little more detailed and refined,
It's true.
because otherwise they would just draw crap and just
No, it's true. It's true.
yeah.
The supposedly one of the toughest guys to ink, and it's obvious because of because of the shading, was Gene Colan. He was all about shading and impressionistic pencils, and boy, the only inker that ever did him total justice, two of them. One was Wally Wood, who could ink anybody and make it look great, and the second one was Tom Palmer, who was on par, not on par, but almost an artist that could make anybody look great. Both of them were, but Wood was like the king. I mean, you could take like anything. You could take a stick figure and make it look great or whatever, but that was on Gene Colan. I don't think Wally Wood ever inked Buscema.
December? I don't know.
I think Wally Wood one time did ink Maurice Severin or John Severin on King Cole. Remember, there was another book called King Cole, which was another sword and sorcery book. Did you ever get those?
There was another Robert. Yeah, he did some King Cole.
Did you ever get those? The King Cole one?
Yeah, I got King Cole too. I
So you
really
were
and Kazar. I like because when I found Kazar, I liked that too. The thought of
okay.
having a pet saber-toothed tiger was really like
Yeah, sure, yeah. So yeah, John definitely was. He was definitely an iconic guy. I mean, obviously Kirby's number one to me. So but John Buscema made an impact for like a certain amount of time through the '70s, and he was still. I think he died in the early 2000s. He was still doing comics. At some point, he went to DC, but I don't think he did much there. I think he did one or two stories for DC. Like I think he did a Batman story for DC, which was pretty cool, actually. But he was actually a fine artist. He actually started in comics in the late '40s, but by the '50s, when comics hit a that Wortham thing where like they got blacklisted and they were like supposedly like responsible for juvenile delinquency. I don't know what the excuse is now. I don't think it's comics, but Buscema went to an advertising agency and he lasted there for 10 years maybe or something until he went back to but you know what? He was doing stuff for, if you look around, he was doing stuff for Dell. He was doing stuff for a lot of companies back then. And I read that in some of those Dell books, Sal, his brother, would ink in them. And
oh,
Sal, from what I read, really would have rather have been an inker than a penciler,
mhm.
you know. But I was reading about him a little bit, and he didn't have the same. His art kind of looked like John, but it didn't have the same technique to it. You
He
know what I
didn't have
mean?
the same.
It was cartoonier, I think.
Oomph. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I can remember I reading some comic he did. I think it was about John Carter of Mars. I'm not sure,
Right.
but whatever. The character pretty much had the same face, which looked like angry shouting.
Yeah, with the grin.
Mouth was always open and the brow was always. So
Yeah,
I
right. Yeah.
understand, but maybe it was just a rush job. Says we need this done. Like, that's another thing. These guys were workers. They're not snobby artists. So it's like you
Well,
need
I've
this book
seen.
done.
I don't know if I have them or not. Maybe they're in stores. But I back in the day when my friends were getting photocopies from Marvel people that they knew friends. I saw Sal Buscema, some of his layouts, and they were very slight. I mean, he basically just drew outlines. The
Wow.
outlines were, the outlines were fine. I mean, you see the face, the hands, and the poses, but there was no shading. There was not much detail, and obviously the inker was the one who was doing all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Remember back then, Marvel used to call some people inkers, but I remember there was times they call people embellishers, and the
Yeah.
embellishers I think were the guys that really did the heavy lifting or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Sal was another one. He was doing at sometime. He was doing like 3 or 4 books a month too. Defenders. What was the other one? Spectacular Spider-Man. I don't know,
He
and
did some
others too.
Conan, Captain
Hulk.
America,
He did a bunch of Hulk issues.
yeah, the Avengers, Astonishing Tales, Doctor Strange, Daredevil, Eternals, Ghost Rider.
There you go.
Did a lot too.
But he was definitely. I don't know how to say it without being jerky, but I'm not going to say it. But he was definitely like Buscema light. I think is what you want to.
Yeah, he had the
He had
the
the look.
he had the look, but not the energy
He
or the
didn't. He
finesse.
didn't. He didn't have the. Yeah. Well, the energy is part of it too, but I don't think he had the. Oh man, I don't want to be a jerk. Anyway, I'll just say that he was a little cartoonier than John. That's a nice way of saying it. He was
Yeah,
fine. He was a fine artist. I've seen work that he's done as painterly, and it was fine. You know what I mean? It's just John was a little more. He was a little more of a. I don't know if the right word is polished. There was something about his work where you could tell that he was like, he had a lot of knowledge and he knew how to draw anatomy really well and ink really well. And he was almost borderline fine art in a way.
yeah.
But
Well,
and
they called him the Michelangelo
yeah, and
comic.
Sal was more. Uh, Sal was definitely more comic bookish. But then Sal, he changed his style
Yeah, so I
around the
forget.
time of Thor when Walt Simonson was. He stopped. He became a more of a Walt Simonish penciler,
Yeah,
and it worked. I
yeah, it
liked
was.
it.
Yeah.
Sal was also depending on the anchor that he got. If he got Klaus Janson, it would look really good. If he got Joe Staten on the Hulk, it wasn't very good. And if you got Ben Scaletta, your mileage is different from mine. You know what I mean? So he was definitely like at the mercy of whoever was inking him. But at the time when he changed his style, I think he started inking his work a lot more, and it pretty much was the same. So,
Mhm.
but I like it. I like it. I remember there was an old what was it called? Some Marvel horror mag, Chamber of Darkness, and Sal did a story, and it was really good.
Oh,
But he didn't do much of that, and he inked it and he penciled it, so it was really good. So I'm guessing that if Sal would have inked more of his work back in the days of the Defenders and all, it would have looked a lot. To me, it would have been better. I don't know, because he did want to be an inker. That's what I read anyway. His intention was to become an inker, and he inked John in some books too. I think Avengers or something like that. I don't know.
yeah. I think Sal. Well, I think John liked his. Well, of course, he liked to ink his own stuff, but I think his brother was one of his the inkers he liked.
He
Probably because they
was.
shared similar
Yeah,
sensibility.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I mean, I read that John Sal idolized his brother. I mean, I'm sure his brother taught him a lot too.
Yeah,
You know, his brother, I could see John doing like fine artwork, and to me, Sal was a pure comic book artist. Even though I have seen paintings by Sal that look like fine art, so I haven't seen too much. See, I never saw much of Sal's painterly stuff. I just saw his comic book stuff, but I have seen a few pieces that were really tight and really nice looking. So I can't judge him on his fine art ability, but I think he had it too.
right.
You know.
Yeah.
But
I
those,
mean, I've seen some of John Buscema's paintings, and it's like, whoa.
but
Yeah,
those guys ruled the '70s kind of for Marvel in a lot of ways. They. I mean, think about it this way: if John was doing 3 or 4 books, Sal was doing 3 or 4 books. So you can imagine between the two brothers, they were doing like 8 books a month. That's
which
crazy.
which was again like for the editors and the publishers and stuff, they're interested in getting things out. So sometimes they would accept some mediocre stuff, just that, like, we got to get this book out, or they'll have somebody come in and finish a book because the other guy's falling behind and stuff.
Well, I don't think either one of them did mediocre stuff. I just think
No,
that,
they did. Yeah, I'm not saying they did.
but some other people might have, and but that's the thing too. What was it? Somebody said something. You have to be three things in comics. You either got to be two out of the three. You got to be fast. You got to be really good. And what's the third one? I forgot what the third one was. Oh God, there's a third one there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You have to be
there's
fast.
you have to have two of the three. You got to be really good. You got to be really fast. And the third one was like, I don't know if it was
Cheap or something like that, or
something like that. On time maybe. Yeah, that was it. That was it. You got to be like really good. You got to be like on. Well, oh man. You know what? I'm going to look it up right now, and I'm just going to do some editing on this thing because I read about it. You got to be really good. You got to be on time, and I don't know what the third one is. I don't know if it's got to be really nice or. Hold on, I'm gonna look it up. Two of the three things you have to be to make it in comics. Let's see if I can find it here. Oh, come on. What are the I can't find it. Anyway, I can't find it, so we'll just leave it at that. But two of the three are really good and on time.
yeah.
Really good, or you got to be fast. And I don't know if the third one is you have to be dependable. You can either be
Oh, maybe that's it.
because I don't know, dependable might be the same as fast. You know what I mean? But it's two of those three. If you're really good and you're slow, sometimes they let you slide. So I'm trying to figure out which was the third. All right, we figured it out. You have to be to be able to make it in the comics. You have to be fast. This is two out of three.
Okay.
You have to be fast, be easy to work with, or be talented. If you're two of those three, you'll make it. If you're talented and easy to work with, you'll make it. If you're talented and fast, you'll make it. If you're fast and easy to work with, you'll make it too. So that's how, and by talented, they mean like a really great artist. You know what I mean? So that's the secret of making it into comics. So now that we figured that out, I guess I had to phrase it the proper way in order for the Google AI to tell me what it is. But yeah, that's what I heard a long time ago. So, but usually, honestly, they be easy to work with is the lesser of the three. You know?
Uh, yeah, because they need this stuff out,
Yeah,
and they do need it fast. Because if you have a book but it's not out in its regular time, people start to lose interest.
yeah.
You know?
They either
So
want you to be fast and adequate, or talented, or
right.
pretty great, and they'll
So
they'll work with you. But
but
if you're really great and slow, you may have a problem.
yeah, if you're easy to work with, they may cut you some slack if you miss something and somebody else needs to fill in for you. But if you do that regularly, they're not gonna.
It basically says at the end here, in short, if you're nice and fast, you'll get work.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, there you go. Now, whether that still is, the deal, I don't know, but that's the old advice that and I'm sure Sal was nice and fast and easy to work with, and kind of talented. So his brother was all. I don't know if his brother was easy to work with, but I've never heard stories. I don't know if John. I've never heard stories of John being difficult.
No, but if he had a problem with you, I think
He
he
would let
just
you know.
yeah, he would let you know. But I think he also just avoided you. It's like I don't want to deal with this a-hole, whatever.
Well, I read a story recently where it was like John was like working with Stan, and Stan would say, "Yeah, I'm going to send you an outline of what I want," and John would said, don't send me an outline, just tell me what you want in the story." And Stan would say, "Okay, I want to fight with Galactus and blah blah blah," and John, "Okay, fine, I'll just give you that, and you write the
Yeah, you're
captions,"
right.
and that's the way
Well,
they worked.
yeah,
That was the same with Kirby, I believe. They didn't work with a script. They just gave him a like a phone
brief
call.
synopsis. Yeah, I want to fight. I want this to happen. I want that to happen, and they just did it. And I
I
think
want
that's. I don't think Buscema cared about getting a writing credit, but I know Kirby did.
Well, not
And
just Kirby. Wally Wood quit Marvel because he wasn't getting a writing credit. Ditko
oh,
quit
really? I
Marvel
didn't
because
know
he
that.
wasn't getting a writing credit. And
Oh,
Joe Orlando quit Marvel because he was saying, "Wait a minute, I'm writing this story. Why don't I get paid to be a co-writer?" So yeah, there were guys that quit
oh, okay.
because they didn't like working at that format, or they could do it, but they wanted to get more money out of it.
Right,
And
right.
Stan was just basically like, I know I've heard with Kirby, he a lot of times he would just do the phone thing. "Hey
Right.
Jack, I want this issue to have Silver Surfer in it and Black Panther, and I want them to like go into outer space, and then at the end Galactus shows up." Okay, 2 weeks later he's got a story by Kirby with
Yeah.
with Kirby would like do on each panel above it, he would actually like do a synopsis of what was going on. He was actually writing the damn thing and all. But you know what? I'm not gonna give it to Stan. Was great at putting the words in. He was good at making it. He was way better at dialogue than Jack Kirby ever was.
And he was also good at marketing. He was great at marketing.
Great at marketing. Yeah.
And I hear people, put down Stan and raise up Kirby. And I personally, I think they both worked great together. And if
They did.
one didn't have the other, they may not have been as successful.
I think Jack was more successful without Stan than Stan without Jack. Jack Kirby
Yeah,
had successful books in the 50s.
yeah,
And even after Marvel, those DC books sold well for a while, but
right.
but definitely the two of them were like Lennon and McCartney. They
Yeah,
were a great combination of.
yeah. They really worked well with each other, and and then with a lot of things, a lot of groups when they work together, they eventually, their creative differences start butting heads, and they start getting frustrated because they want to do other things and whatever. But yeah,
Yeah, and that I don't think Buscema he may have butted heads, but he again, the thing between Kirby and Lee was pretty was pretty messy towards the end. I mean,
and,
basically, like people were going to Marvel and like giving Stan all the accolades, and Kirby be there, and they were just like, "Who is this guy?" You know. And Kirby really was doing all the heavy lifting, but
I don't
Stan,
doubt. Yeah, I'm not trying to negate Kirby's uh, contribution, but he definitely, him and Stanley, there was like a lightning in a bottle there at that
yeah,
time,
I
and that
don't think I don't think
really,
Stan I don't think Stan ever had the same. Well, he did do a good job with Buscema on the Silver Surfer too. So I'm not gonna negate that and some of the other stuff, but honestly, just because I'm an artist, and so are you actually, when you see a comic book script, not to put down writers because they are the ones who come up with a story and dialogue it and all that, but the artist really is the one who's busting to
yeah,
get the story done. Because you got to be
comics,
able to, because some writer can come up with the most cockamamie,
yeah,
idiotic panels and ideas, and you got to figure out how to draw it. And if you don't draw it right, they'll find somebody else to do it.
yeah, exactly. Um, Comics, a lot of people forget comics are a visual medium, not
Totally a visual medium.
prose.
Obviously, you need a writer. There's no doubt. You need a writer, but
It's
every artist can write. They might not be able to be great writers. They might not be a great dialoguer, but every artist, I'm
yeah,
telling you right now, every guy who wants to be a comic book can come up with a story.
Yeah, exactly. Because you know what visuals, and if you're good at storytelling, you know how to pace the story pictorially. You know what panels to emphasize and how to shape them and how to get the story to move along. So yeah, you may not be great at dialogue or your pacing may be a little off, but yeah, usually the pictures tell the story. Otherwise, you'd be reading a novel.
Yeah. I mean, people do get bored with, well, to get off on another tangent, the whole thing with like the art being number one, it it what happened was, in my opinion, was that Image Comics came along, and all these guys that were drawn from Marvel in the '80s, '90s, early '90s, they were artists.
Yeah,
McFarlane,
yeah,
Liefeld, Jim Lee. They did do good for a while, but people really started not liking them anymore because they thought their stories sucked. So there is that aspect of being an artist where you do kind of have to come up with something interesting. It can't just be all art, art, art. There's got to be a little bit, but it's a chemistry and it's a medium, but you do have to you do have to have ideas.
yeah,
You know.
exactly. Yeah, you have to have an idea that works well, and the pacing is important, and how you present the information. So yeah, you do need a writer. We're not trying to diss
Yeah,
writers
I know, no.
because they are important, but it is more, and it's the same with penciling and inking. All
Yeah,
that stuff has to work together.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So it's not necessarily
But if you're an artist, again, you go both ways. If you're an artist and you have an idea, you could always hire a writer. You
yeah,
know what I
that's
mean?
true. Yeah, that's
To
true.
finish it off. But the way it usually works is the writer comes up with the story and hires
And
an artist.
yeah,
But I think either one of them might be great. But I think on the artist, it's probably more advantageous to draw this and have a writer, write it for you. If you're not good at dialogue,
right.
or
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 right. Yeah,
you got boring ideas. But honestly, most artists usually have interesting ideas. You know what
mhm,
I mean? Because they're all visual, but like I said, there's some that got to be real big shots and not so great.
yeah,
So, but
yeah,
anyway, we got away from John and Sal, but yeah, they were the kings of Marvel for a
yeah.
while.
They really they. I mean, if you look at the books they were in, I think, every book.
Yeah.
They either penciled, laid out, or drew and inked just about every character in Marvel, and I don't know about every character in DC,
No,
but
they
they
weren't really
definitely
DC guys at all, really.
uh,
They were mostly Marvel guys.
yeah, mostly Marvel.
Throughout the late 60s through the late 70s, they were until, like I said, guys like John Byrne and, Jim Starlin and a few others, came in and kind of like, became more fan favorites. Let's put it that way. I do know for a fact that the Buscema style got was like there were some people usually like artsy fartsy guys. They got tired of seeing. Oh, I'm tired of seeing that John Buscema the same panel over and over again where they're grimacing and this and that. So there was a part that, believe me, for all the Kirby things that you're talking about, there were people back then because I remember dealing with them
Yes,
that were like, yeah, I'm kind of tired of the John Buscema, you know,
yeah. Well,
grimace and pose and
you can get
whatever.
tired of
Yeah.
any artist,
Same way
especially
people
with
got
comics.
tired of John Byrne,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. You can get tired with any art, especially if they're doing the same kind of story. Because a
Yeah.
lot of the Conan stories were somewhat repetitive, so the poses were repetitive, and if
Some
you're
people didn't
like,
like some people didn't like Conan.
Yeah, and some people, I don't know why they don't like sword and sorcery. Maybe who knows?
Well,
No.
look, I'm going to tell you one reason why, because the Conan stories, a lot of them, and I mean, this is a style, this is a trope, whatever you want to call it. It
Yeah,
was usually him, and he's riding a horse, and he's got his big chest out, and some hot babe running around with long hair, and she's like half naked, and there's a wizard, or there's a monster,
yeah.
and yeah, yeah,
The
you
poster
know.
child for the patriarchy.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You want something different. I will have to tell
Yeah,
you, but anyway, yeah, that's our take on the Buscema. But they were the kings of Marvel for a while. Whether you like them or not, they
yeah,
ruled. They were putting out at least 8 books a month,
yeah,
maybe more.
yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe more.
I think
Yeah,
I can't think of a character in the '70s that Buscema, John maybe, didn't put his hands on. I mean, look at that picture that I have on there. It's like he drew
right.
everybody. I mean, maybe I don't know. Did Buscema ever draw Doctor Strange?
Yes,
John? I don't even
yeah.
know. He
He
did.
drew Doctor Strange. Let's
Okay.
see. Where is it?
He drew Cowboys. I know he drew I'm sure he drew Rawhide Kid or Kid Colt for a while there too. I'm
Yep,
looking at the.
Doctor Strange. I'm looking at his list. Yeah, I don't see Doctor Strange. I know Sal
Sal did.
drew Doctor Strange.
I
And I
mean,
think
I mean,
uh,
Buscema even, yeah, I mean, Buscema even did stuff in those Marvel Treasury like Spider-Man and
right,
Superman and
giant
Hulk.
size super villain team up.
Yeah,
Girl
he,
comics he drew. That's in 1941, 49.
he even drew like Man Thing. I know he drew a couple of issues of Man Thing.
And Marvel Age, Marvel Fanfare.
He might have not drawn some of the. He maybe not. Look and see if it says that he drew the X-Men. I know he drew Wolverine, but I don't think he ever drew an X-Men book.
X-Men numbers 42 to 43 and 45. Just the
He did
cover art.
draw them. He did draw
Just the
them.
cover art.
Oh, the cover. Yeah, okay. Not the interiors. Okay. Yeah, I don't think he. That's maybe one group they never touched. I mean, I don't think John ever drew the Defenders either. Sal was the Defenders.
Defenders, I don't see. No.
Yeah,
But
okay. Sal was the one that drew the Defenders a lot.
yeah. Sal, I mean, if you look at Sal's list of comics, he had either penciled or inked or whatever. I mean, that's a big list too. Probably as big, if not
For
maybe
sure.
more,
I'm sure.
than John.
I'm
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, they had a very strong influence.
Sal, I think even draw. I think Sal drew the X-Men and some kind of X-Men. I think he drew some giant size X-Men book or
Yeah,
whatever.
he was the penciler for X-Men number 66. He drew X Factor.
Yeah.
Um,
Sal might have drawn more characters than John. May.
yeah.
Did
Well,
Sal ever do Conan?
yes, Sal did Conan
He
as
did.
a let's see, think of penciler, inker and penciler. He was on both. Daredevil,
Okay.
Defenders, Doc Strange, Eternal, Fantastic Four, Ghost Riders, Hulk, Iron Fist, Iron Man, John Carter of Mars.
I
Uh,
know John drew the Frankenstein monster, but I don't know if Sal did the Frankenstein or the werewolf comics.
no, I don't see
Werewolf by
Frank.
Night would be one of them, and I know John drew the Frankenstein monster because I had those issues.
Yeah, no, he did Tarzan,
Oh yeah, he
Submariner,
did Tarzan. Yeah,
Star
sure.
Wars, Spider Man, Spider Girl, Red Sonja, Rawhide Kid, Rom, Power Man, New Mutants, Nova, New Avengers. Yeah, I mean he
They
is
did it all
just
almost.
just as
90,
prolific.
95% of all the Marvel
Uh,
characters.
yeah,
That's
these guys were.
that's a great. I mean, that's the epitome of a great artist. If you could do like successfully draw all those characters.
Looks like he did a lot more for DC too.
John
Uh,
did.
it's Sal. He did
Oh, Sal. Okay.
Superman, Superboy, Steel, Robin, Green Arrow, Creeper, Catwoman, several Batmans,
I've never
Superman.
seen those. I got to look them up. I've never seen those.
They're mostly like in the late 90s, early
I think
2000s.
that's when he left Marvel or was not given
Yeah,
any more
probably.
work or something. I don't know.
Yeah. And he did some independent stuff, Dungeons and Dragons, G.I. Joe. Yeah, so he
Okay.
was very prolific.
Oh, extremely. They both
Not
were.
not as well, probably not as well known as his brother, but he's still probably just as influential.
Sal is well known. In
Yeah, so
in 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 a good way and maybe a not so good way. He's well known.
I think he was a bit overshadowed by John because of John's talent, skill. And maybe if John hadn't gone into comics, maybe Sal would be more well known and
I think so. I
you know.
think so.
But they're both great artists, and yeah, I
And we
mean,
bought all their
set the
books, and
pace.
we brought all their books, and we
Yeah,
remember all the stuff they did because it was part of our whatever childhood.
yeah, part of our childhood. Yeah,
Not I don't know if you want to call it adulthood, but yeah, whatever. Teenage years. Yeah,
teenage, early 20s.
yeah. So anyway, that's our little tribute to the great Buscema brothers who shaped our comic book taste for quite a while. Quite a while.
Yeah,
Sal's still alive,
yeah. Sal's still alive. John died in 2002,
too, right?
I think. In
Yeah,
January
2002.
2000.
Yeah, it's a shame because he still was able to draw really well.
Yeah, he was 74.
Wow, I didn't know he was that age. So Sal must be what, in his 80s or something, late 80s?
Sal is, yeah, I think in his 80s. Hold on.
He still draws.
Yeah, he's still drawing. 88.
Wow, he's 88?
Yeah,
That is amazing that he could still draw at 88. Lucky him, man. He must have the greatest genetics of all time.
yeah. He's
Wow.
going.
All right, well, that's it for our John Buscema, Sal Buscema tribute. We got to figure out who else we're going to do next, and, we shall do it. But these are
Yeah.
artists that you know well, so that
Well,
was
I don't
good.
mind going through us and like discovering new artists because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, but
I,
yeah,
I,
of course, yeah.
I, I
Are
never,
there any more guys that you remember that off the top of your head that you really like, like George Perez maybe or somebody like that, or I don't know.
no, I don't know. I'd have to look at more like the comics I really liked and then see who drew them and inked them because
Yeah, yeah.
it never really dawned on me that the inker could have so much influence.
The
You know?
final look of the book is the inker. The
And the
finished
colors too. If you get a
the colorist, yeah. But the reality is it's what you see is what the inker did.
right,
I mean, yeah, the pencil obviously has a style and but it's all
yeah,
in,
both.
it's in the inks, so
I've seen where different inkers will ink the same pencil. I mean, you could see the difference, right? It's like, wow, what a big difference some inkers have over
oh, it's true. It's true.
the final image, the final look.
Yeah,
So,
there's no doubt about that. I mean, some guys pencil really tight,
yeah,
so it's going to be tough to change it. But if you get, anything can happen.
yeah, booster thing. The only other artist I really followed was Joe Cooper.
All right, well,
All
dude, we'll talk about Kubert
right,
then.
cool. I mean, I loved his Tarzan. In fact, I have his Tarzan collected in 3 volumes somewhere.
All right, that's a good one.
All right,
He's a
cool,
classic.
cool, man.
He was around since the golden age, since the 40s. So
Okay.
he did a lot of comic books. He drew a lot of comic books, a lot of war comics, but
I don't know
superheroes.
I know
Hawkman he
Tarzan,
did back in the old days.
and he also drew Tor.
Tor, yeah, that was another barbarian guy from the 50s or something.
Yeah, it was more like a caveman bug.
Caveman, yeah, but
And
yeah,
instead of
yeah,
sword sorcery, it was club and sorcery.
something like that, yeah. All right, we'll do Kubert next. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one to talk about. I'm a big fan too, so.
Yeah, that sounds
All
cool.
right, well, we'll be back and next time and we'll do some Joe Cooper. That'll be fun to research. I'm a big fan too.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next time.
All righty. Bye.